It was the fictional character Dr. Grace Augustine who once said, "There are many dangers on Pandora, and one of the subtlest is that you may come to love it too much." Something that the RDA and like 99% of the humans don't agree with. The RDA, also known as the Resources Development Administration, is the largest company in the universe. Or the largest company in the known universe. The RDA is made up of 3 different operations. You got the SecOps, as in security operations, the SetOps, as in cetacean operations, and then the PsyOps, as in science. Let's get to know the SecOps first. Let's say you, for example, we're getting you involved now. You just signed a contract with the RDA, so now they basically own you and your soul. And you're gonna go end up working on the moon of Pandora. And you're probably like, what's my role over there? That's a really good question. Let's have you fill in the non-important role of unnamed SecOps background extra who will later be used for cannon fodder to help supply audiences with entertainment. Well, in order to get you to that danger moon for your inevitable demise, you gotta travel on the ISV as an interstellar vehicle. Since we're traveling with Jake Sully and crew in the year 2154, we're taking the Venture Star. That's the name of this particular ISV. In this book, this one right here, the one that's called like Avatar or Visual Exploration, they go on to refer to the ISV as the highest technological achievement in human history. The Venture Star, along with various other ISVs, provide transportation between our solar system and the Alpha Centauri system. So basically between Earth and Pandora. I don't know if anyone else is going to care about this, but the size of the vehicles, we're going to be talking about those. So deal with it. The ISV is clocking in at 4,929 feet long, 992 feet wide, and 715 feet tall. You'll see that this capital class ship has one big truss with a bunch of modules connected to it. You'll be comfortably, well, actually, it's not going to be that comfortable, but you're going to be uncomfortably staying in the habitation modules, or if we're using canon-approved slang, the HAB modules. This is where they keep the other 200 mine workers, SecOps people like you, and the PsyOps crew, just sleeping in cryosleep. Here, you're going to be perfectly preserved and monitored by the medical crew who's on standby. There's about 25 medtechs on board during this entire journey to Pandora. They're going to be looking over you guys and making sure that none of you die or wake up accidentally, because that would kind of suck to spend the next how many years with these guys who are just like getting cabin fever over here. But going back to the modules for a second, there are 2 docking bays for the Valkyrie Shuttle right here and here. Oh, and this entire section of the ship is dedicated to carrying Unobtainium. We'll get to why that payload rock is so important in a second, but not right now. Just give me a second. The open truss that connects all the modules contains a single pressurized rigid corridor in the center so that you and the crew can move to each module with ease. There's also airlocks along the entire truss, so crab-like repair robots can exit the ship and make necessary repairs, as well as do other maintenance if need be. The ISV needs to travel 4.4 light years in less than 6 years of Earth time. So it's gonna have to use these 2 antimatter propulsion engines to travel a comm speed of 130,488 miles per second. Or if you're from Bulgaria, or the other 95% of the world, that's gonna be 210,000 kilometers per second. The Unobtainium that I wanted to talk about later, but I guess we have to talk about it right now. That rock is used to direct the ship's matter, antimatter annihilation power. These fuel bubble tanks, I know there's a more technical name for them, but these fuel bubble tanks hold the fuel that goes into the engine. Obviously, in a vacuum, the antimatter turns into a high-density cloud of atoms that is contained by a magnetic field, thanks to the Unobtainium. And then they pair this with the matter for annihilation. The annihilating part of the matter and the antimatter creates a ton of energy, like an unparalleled amount of energy. The photons of energy released from this annihilation eject from the engine and then provide thrust to push this very flimsy looking ship across the entire galaxy. The plume from the engines is about 30 kilometers long, and the light is so freaking bright that it's a spectacle for anyone to see back on Earth, and an absolute nightmare for the Na'vi to witness. The 2 massive radiators are there to dissipate the heat, causing the red and orange glow that you see right here. On this end, we got the Interstellar Debris Protection System, also known as the IDPS, which is made up of 4 plates with reflectors on this side and then a whole bunch of other stuff on the other side. The name kind of gives away the meaning behind this whole part of the ship, as it protects the modules from space debris. You're welcome for the explanation. But actually, the debris shield also acts as a photon sail. So the photon sail is another propulsion method. When photons from the nearest star bounce off the sail, it propels the craft forward. By 2154, the year that you and I are currently in right now, there are seven ISVs in rotation going back from Earth to Pandora, just constantly. It's a constant rotation. Because of the ship's size that we were talking about earlier, it was constructed in Earth's orbit. The entire thing was never built to enter the atmosphere of any moon or any planet, because that would go horribly wrong. The thing would like snap in half. You would end up on the news. The ISV is stuck in this perpetual flight path between two star systems, and it's just gonna remain in orbit around Pandora and Earth forever. But we still gotta get you down to Pandora safely for your inevitable demise. And as we just established, we can't take the ISV, so I think we're gonna have to take something else. Then that would be the Valkyrie Shuttle. The Valkyrie Shuttle, also known as the SSTO TAV-37 B-Class Shuttle. Did I get it? The SSTO stands for single stage to orbit. Also, for those curious, the TAV, and the name that is too long and technical for its own good, stands for Trans-Atmospheric Vehicle. This thing tends to be 334 feet long and occasionally has a wingspan of 263 feet, making this potato 3 times larger than NASA's Space Shuttle Orbiter, the thing that was in use during the production of the first Avatar film. For those who need to know, the Orbiter had a length of 122.17 feet and a wingspan of 78.1 feet. Remember how Jake Sully's ISV is called the Venture Star? Well, the Venture Star was the name of a reusable spaceplane that the US government hired Lockheed Martin to design. Its original purpose was to launch into space, shoot out a satellite, and then safely descend back down into Earth to reload. It would constantly be flying up and down, dropping off satellites into orbit. The real-life Venture Star was a concept that was never really developed due to how much money it was costing and the technical limitations and the failures in its predecessor, the X-33 program. And if we want to get really technical for a second, because why not? They had significant trouble developing the multi-lobe composite structure cryogenic hydrogen tank necessary for this puppy to get going. So because of all the things that I just said, the project was canceled in 2001. And we got no Venture Star. But doesn't that just look exactly like the Valkyrie Shuttle? Oh wait, sorry. Doesn't the Venture Star look exactly like the SSTO? The Valkyrie Shuttle also kind of looks like NASA's supersonic research aircraft, the XB-70 Valkyrie. But in terms of appearance, the Venture Star and the X-33 look more like the Valkyrie Shuttle. But I'm assuming that the Valkyrie and the XB-70 Valkyrie is what inspired the Valkyrie and Valkyrie Shuttle. It makes sense as to why it would be inspired by real NASA shuttles or concepts, as James Cameron, this, was a former member of the NASA Advisory Council. He was also involved in developing a 3D camera for one of the Mars rovers. I think it was the first Mars rover, but sadly, the 3D camera ended up never getting used due to time restraints and everything. When designing the Valkyrie Shuttle, senior illustrator Ryan Church reflected on his time collaborating with James Cameron, saying, "I love the fact that I got to work with a director that did want to know what kind of bolts were holding these fusion engines on, and if it's gonna vector, as every craft we're talking about right now, we're gonna be talking about, had to somehow be grounded in the real world. Every part of this ship serves a purpose." Cameron and the design team were prioritizing function over aesthetic, so they weren't just making something look cool for the sake of it. This craft, the one that we've been talking about for some reason, serves 3 major purposes: to transport passengers, to transport refined unobtainium, and to help deliver what I believe to be one of the smoothest cuts in cinematic history. Oh, my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Can we just play that again for a second? Oh, who am I kidding? I'm the editor. Of course we're playing it again. Wow. What was I talking about? And actually, wait, there's a 4th major purpose, and that is that the vehicle is responsible for carrying things like vehicles and other specialized electronics that couldn't be created on Pandora, because at the time, the manufacturing facilities in Hell's Gate were not as advanced as the ones back on Earth. When conceptualizing this craft, the film's director, James Cameron, I don't know if you've ever heard of him before, but he wanted the design team to make the Valkyrie Shuttle, along with every single other freaking vehicle we see in the series, as realistic and practical as possible. So when we're looking inside the Valkyrie Shuttle, you'll see things like floor rollers for heavy packages. The seats fold back into the wall for maximum storage room. There's even netting on both walls to better secure the payloads. The design team literally thought of everything. Except cup holders. I've yet to find any cup holders. The last time you, being a SecOps soldier, saw this thing was when we were loading it up with a bunch of daisy cutter payloads. Daisy cutters being a large-scale explosive that linked to other incendiary devices, creating a daisy chain effect when they're ignited. Hence the name, daisy cutter. Do you get it? The payload in this thing can hold up to 25 amp suits, 60 armed troops, or 25 tons of refined unobtainium. Spoilers, it's mainly just used for transporting unobtainium. I know we're trying to get you down to the moon right now, but we're just not going to do that for a moment because I want to talk about the shuttle leaving the atmosphere. The Valkyrie Shuttle can launch back up there with ease due to its dual mode fusion engine. And when it's launching out of Pandora's gravitational field, the shuttle has been known to exceed speeds of 4,027 miles per hour or 64,820 kilometers per hour. When the shuttle is launching into the atmosphere, the plume of energy released from the dual engine is visible for most of the launch. Like if you were watching from Hell's Gate, you could see the trail of energy almost all the way to the ISV. Almost all the way to the ISV. Pandora is not that big. In fact, it's slightly smaller than Earth. So if you're watching the shuttle launch from Hell's Gate, it's gonna vanish somewhere on the horizon right before it gets to the ISV. I don't know how important this information is to your life. But according to Avatar Visual Exploration, the vessel reaches orbit in under 10 minutes. But then it takes an additional 6 hours to maneuver and dock with the ISV. 6 hours of maneuvering. 6 hours. Okay, so you're gonna wake up from the longest nap of your entire life, get shoved into the Valkyrie Shuttle, travel 1,243 miles or 2,000 kilometers down into the atmosphere of Pandora, so then you can arrive at Hell's Gate, the headquarters for the mining operation for the whole unobtainium thing. Unobtainium, because I feel like I mentioned it about 14 times by now, and there's been no clear definition happening. So on Pandora, this place, the RDA is mining unobtainium. Not to be confused with the unobtainium from the 2003 film The Core, or the unobtainium from the film The Collapsium, or the unobtainium from the book Startide Rising. To be fair, the term unobtainium originated in the 1950s when aerospace engineers needed a word to describe a material that was purely hypothetical or impossible to obtain. They were basically saying, okay, we need this one particular substance, or like metal or something, that would contain the ideal properties needed to build whatever the heck we wanted to build. But theoretically, this particular substance doesn't exist out there. We haven't advanced science enough to get to the point where we could create it. So for now, you know what? Let's just call this hypothetical material unobtainium, because we can't obtain it. And that's exactly why they named this quasi-crystal this. Before the discovery of unobtainium, we got the world's first high-temperature superconductor back on Earth. But it was useless. There were so many technical limitations to it, and everyone was discouraged. But then one day, some random astronomers pointed their very powerful telescopes at the Alpha Centauri system and discovered Pandora, causing excitement that led to the production of even larger telescopes to observe the Earth-like moon. Then they were feeling a little dangerous, so they sent one of those unmanned probes, as we typically do, to the planet, the moon. And then they found a place with vast electromagnetic fields, thanks to unobtainium. They also found a bunch of wildlife and plants and trees and water and oxygen and carbon dioxide. And then they also found like weird, tall, cat-like blue people that we're all somehow weirdly attracted to. But the main interest here was the unobtainium. The material was thought to be formed when a Mars-sized planetesimal hit the still molten Pandora. The high temperature and pressure from this collision disrupted the iron-nickel core of Pandora, and then it formed a bunch of this stuff. The humans found it, and then they're like, okay, we got a new gold rush on our hands. The humans finally found the best superconductor. Unlike all the other superconductors that needed to be cooled, Unobtainium is able to function at room temperature while transmitting electricity with 0 resistance. Its melting point is also 1516 degrees Celsius, or 2761 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty dang good. Deep space travel with superluminal communications and hyperchip manufacturing would be made peanut butter and easy with this thing. And what the heck am I talking about when I say superluminal communications? Well, okay, superluminal communication is a form of interstellar communication. So you know how NASA primarily relies on radio waves for communicating with their stuff in space right now? Well, those radio waves only travel at the speed of light. Meaning if the Earth humans were to send a message to Pandora, it would take 4.4 years for the humans at Hell's Gate to receive it. But we at the RDA, we gotta be on it for the quarterly shareholder meetings. Scientists found that if 2 subatomic particles become entangled, one of those entangled particles can affect the other one instantaneously, no matter how much room you put in between them. By the way, this is like an actual thing in physics. In the world of Avatar, the issue that the humans were running into was with the measurements of these particles. The particles were affecting each other, but the outcome was too unpredictable. I think like 1 in every 100 measurements were accurate. Luckily, physicist Austin McKinney, I don't have a picture for this fictional human being, found out that if you use the unobtainium to impose an intense oscillating magnetic field to the initial entangled particle, they could then control the outcome of the measurement and use it to communicate with Hell's Gate using binary code. Now they're able to receive 3 binary digits per hour at a cost of only $7,500 per digit. I'm assuming it's not that much money, because it's the year 2154, and I'm assuming inflation was a thing at some point. Anyway, that is how Hell's Gate is communicating with Earth. And the activists that I've been talking about, they somehow have their own transmitter and receiver. So this is how they've been getting all this information. Something that you may not know about the RDA is that back on Earth, they have a world-spanning rapid transit system. So with the introduction of Unobtainium, they could easily integrate Mag-Lev trains into this global network. They use the Unobtainium to make the Mag-Lev trains even faster and more effective, as the entire propulsion method of this train is electromagnetic. We don't really get to see an official Mag-Lev train until the humans return to Pandora. By then, we get to witness a 900 feet long, or 274-ish meters long train. And when it comes to what it's hauling, it's got 1 defensive car in the middle and 1 defensive car in the back. These are going to be filled with AMP suits and SecOps personnel in order to defend the train. Like, look at them doing such a good job defending it right here. The train's also carrying stacked container cars. Within them, you can find stuff and various other things. And the flatbed cars contain whatever material they were mining that day. On Pandora, these trains have to have big bulldozer-like cow catchers, kind of like a snowplow. This is in order to push Pandoran vegetation off of the track, or violently brush aside Pandoran animals that have the audacious nature to go about their day as if there was not a 900-foot-long ecological disaster of a machine heading straight towards them. There's also vine cutters on the side to cut vines with. Unobtainium really became the backbone of Earth's economy, as millions of shareholders rely on the distribution of this rock, especially when it's selling for close to 44 million per pound or 20 million per kilogram. After this, the RDA was able to completely monopolize everything going from Pandora to Earth, meaning they have full control of any product made from Pandoran resources, whether that would be exporting binary sunshine, something that could be used as a natural light source, or even exporting Episoth, a plant that produces extremely effective skin rejuvenation material that humans can use to look less ugly. There's even RDA workers secretly smuggling fish like the Dinocthoid off Pandora to illegally sell it to rich people so they can put this nightmare monster in their private aquariums. And something that I was reading about is actually sometimes this may get into our sewer systems back on Earth, which isn't good. This isn't a good thing to have in our sewers. The RDA also controls 100% of the unobtainium, obviously. Back on Earth, the RDA ruined a lot. Like, they ruined so much. So much stuff. For example, when expanding the company through our solar system, they were able to set up a bunch of orbiting factories in our sky around the moon or other places like Mars. Here's the fun fact. The moon factories and other factories near Earth produce a lot of pollution, and that gets roped into our atmosphere and then produces endless poisonous rain that pours down from the sky onto unsuspecting Earth people. By 2154, Earth is a never-ending wasteland. Imagine like a big old garbage dump, but it's the entire planet. Imagine Hollywood, California, but it's the entire planet. Imagine the essence of Beverly Hills, and it's the entire planet. According to Avatar and Activist Survival Guide, the reasons that led to this are overpopulation, overdevelopment, nuclear terrorism, environmental warfare, radiation leakage from power plants and waste dumps. And the list just keeps going. Toxic runoff, air pollution, deforestation, global warming, ozone depletion, loss of biodiversity through extinction. I'm assuming the bees didn't survive this one. At this time, the United States has no national parks left. The sequoia is gone. One of my favorite national parks, Yosemite, got turned into an upscale condo development. But I'm not gonna lie, I would definitely buy a condo there. The poor people are living in these cubes within these lockbox housing complexes. Imagine just an endless row of dystopian filing cabinets, and that's what everyone's living in. It's not ideal. So wait, hold on one second. The Activist Survival Guide also claims that our once blue-green, beauteous Earth is now a terminal cesspool, an oozing wound cut deep into the face of the universe. Dollar for dollar, we've bought our extinction. Wow, way to be a downer. I really wish they included the deleted scenes depicting Earth in the final cut of Avatar 2009. I feel like these deleted scenes provided a good contrast between the current decay of our Earth and the absolute breath of fresh air that is Pandora, going from shoulder to shoulder crowds to vast open forests. Plus, like, the color palettes and everything are a good contrast between each other. Before Jake gets called to Pandora, he wanders aimlessly amongst crowds of people who are unwashed because of the fresh water shortages, because they don't have any more fresh water, because all the water is just gone. In this book that I've been talking about for a good minute now, the activists writing it are actively trying to dismantle the RDA. They think that if the RDA destroys Earth, they're also going to destroy Pandora. Right now, in the year 2154, the activists think that the humans are infected with this virus of consumerism, and they're just gonna keep consuming and destroying everything around them until they're eventually cured of it. The activists think that if they share this confidential information about Pandora and the ways of the Na'vi, they can apply that information to save those who are stuck on Earth, the ones who are left sick, poor, and stupid, and in service to their corporate overlords. Anyway, the humans brought our hell to Pandora, hence the name of the first extrasolar colony on Pandora, Hell's Gate. With a population of 2,500, Hell's Gate offers a good amount of stuff. For example, you got housing barracks for the SecOps crew, the mine workers, the PsyOps people. Over here is the RDA administrative offices, training facilities, and the repair garages for the vehicles that we're gonna talk about in just a moment. But you know, who cares about all this stuff? The main reason we're here is that Hell's Gate houses the Avatar program, where you can find the Longhouse. This is where the drivers of avatars do stuff like play basketball and become familiar with their avatar bodies while doing some gardening and agricultural stuff on the side, which is good. All this nonsense is protected by a pentagonal perimeter fence, with each side being 1.1 miles or 1.89 kilometers long. Then there's a large clearing that surrounds the outside of the fence. Imagine a strip of land that extends 98 feet or 30 meters out and then circles around the entirety of the base. How do they maintain this clearing, you ask? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask, but I asked, so now we're going to talk about it. The RDA uses pollution and acidic mining byproducts to poison the soil and prevent the greenery from approaching the compound. On top of that are things like the MBS-22A automated sentry guns. You know, the thing with the 3-barrel automatic perimeter defense turret that can fire 6,000 supersonic projectile rounds per minute, all done with an auto-targeting computer. But in this deleted scene, we see that the RDA's defense is not entirely foolproof, as a lone stingbat sneaks into the perimeter and scares the taco sauce out of Jake Sully. But going back to the pollution thing for a second, when Hell's Gate was in operation, the Omatikaya were exposed to this dangerous chemical runoff surrounding the colony. For example, one of the ways that they were getting affected is that the RDA was dumping toxic goo into the waters that the animals would then drink. So when the Not-V consumed said animals, they got sick. The first ones to get affected were the younger ones, the youths, and at this moment, no one was having a good time. Upon arriving at Hell's Gate, you'll notice that 1/3 of the facility is dedicated to the landing strip for the shuttle, as well as vertical takeoff and landing pads for the other vehicles. During the creation of Hell's Gate, the Valkyrie Shuttle would carry so much equipment and pre-made vehicles down to Pandora. But now they don't really have to do that because Hell's Gate developed its own robotic manufacturing facility. Most of the vehicles, weapons, and ammunition are now produced by an oversized 3D printer named the Grinder. It's able to print using resources mined out of Pandora. There were construction blimps that helped out immensely during the development of Hell's Gate, but we're going to talk about those in the next decade. Bear with me, there's a lot to talk about, and I'm slowly realizing how big of a project this is becoming. Oh, speaking of mining, the anonymous activists from this book believe that the RDA recruitment holoposts, as in the RDA recruitment advertisements, are a lie, and rightfully so. In this stolen RDA document that I can't disclose how I got it, it's reported that the ESM-1, the first unobtainium mine on Pandora, that casualty rates among workers ran somewhat higher than anticipated. In fact, the exposure from the intense electromagnetic fields, it resulted in the mine workers receiving strange tactile sensations and distortions in vision and hearing, and some have reported disturbing thoughts or compulsions, irregular heartbeats, limb paralysis, muscular tremors, vertigo, nausea. Oh boy, and the list just keeps going. The anti-RDA activists went on to claim that any of the mine workers who actually make it back to Earth suffer from potentially fatal health problems. And if they don't succumb to the physical health problems, their mental health deteriorates, and they become estranged from their friends and family as they gradually turn into a dysfunctional member of society. The real cherry on top of this depression sundae is that the workers who returned home are spending most of those big bonuses on medical bills. Plus, during the workday, the mining contractors are out here getting stung by hellfire wasps. I mean, the stings aren't lethal if treated properly, but still, the way that the workers are getting treated, it kind of makes sense. As in, it's not unheard of behavior for the RDA. Remember that global transit system of trains that I was talking about earlier? Well, the RDA's main intent for developing that system was to quickly transport outsourced workers to do underpaid hard labor and then immediately send them back to their country after the work was done. So all I'm trying to say is that the RDA hasn't been the best for a bit now. To add on to this dumpster fire of the ever-present OSHA nightmare, in one of the reports from Hell's Gate, the document discusses how the RDA workers are being fed at the facility. And then they go on to describe the process of protein and carbohydrate synthesis using Pandoran vegetative matter and how it continues to meet the nutritional needs of all the RDA staff. And then they go on to say that improvement in microfilters has led to a marked reduction in cases of amoebic dysentery and necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. And I'm just like, you guys are really doing the minimum out here. There's a quote from someone anonymous saying that any idiot can build a bridge, but it takes an engineer to build a bridge that barely stands. And I feel like that quote resonates in everything the RDA does. By the way, I like how they call this mess hall that you see right here Hell's Kitchen. This mine in particular, the ESM-01 mine, has a 30-year lifespan. There are 3 extraction pits that are eventually going to merge into one big crater that will roughly be 4 kilometers wide. So there's plenty of work to do that will leave the workers with irreversible damage to their bodies. I need to talk about something more optimistic for a second. The Avatar program, led by Dr. Grace Augustine, the person that we mentioned at the beginning of this video. This is the project that the movie and like everything plot-wise revolves around. It's where they take the DNA of a human and combine it with an avatar embryo. They do this so the atomic structures between the driver and the avatar body can sync up to allow a psionic link to happen. So through this mental link, the human body sleeps and the avatar body awakens. Which makes sense as to why the Na'vi would call the avatar bodies Unil Tarantok, meaning dreamwalker body. In certain Native American cultures, the term dreamwalker is someone who can travel between our world and the spiritual world when they're sleeping. The humans have another name for the avatar, and that would be a chimera, a term from Greek mythology used to describe a monster that had parts of different animals in it, like how they took parts of the human and the Na'vi and put them together. When initially combining the DNA, they pulled off some sketchy science stuff that I don't fully understand to this day, making it so the avatar doesn't fully have consciousness, even though it does have a brain. It's somehow lacking its own consciousness. Like the lights are on, but nobody's home kind of thing. It's a vegetable. It's just a big old blue pickled cucumber. After conception, they put the hybrid avatar body into a nutrient-rich amnio tank, and that thing is shoved onto the ISV, and then they let the avatar grow during the entire length of the journey to Pandora, so that when the smart science dorks finally get to Pandora, the driver can then lay in the link unit, pass the heck out, and then control a blue flesh bag. If you have any more questions about the link system, ask Dr. Max Patel. He's in charge of the whole thing. The way you can tell the difference between a Na'vi and an avatar would be by their quirks. The hybrid DNA profile for the avatars led to them keeping human eyebrows, something Na'vi don't have. And I somehow keep forgetting about that fact. It feels like they have eyebrows. The avatar bodies also have 5 toes on each feet and 5 fingers on each hand, compared to the Na'vi who only have 4 fingers and 4 toes. Also the eyes. The eyes are gonna be a lot bigger on the Na'vi, and they're gonna be significantly smaller on the avatar. The avatars were originally meant to be used for most of the mine workers and security at Hell's Gate. This way the workers could be safe from the dangers of Pandora, including prolonged exposure to the electromagnetic fields, the slingers, and so on. That's why the farmland for the avatars was so expansive, because they planned on catering to a lot more avatars. But then the RDA was like, it takes a lot of money and time to develop these things, and we need so many more mine workers than we previously thought. Let's just send the workers in there with other stuff and see what happens. So the Avatar program is now just a small collection of researchers. Dr. Grace Augustine does all she can to keep the program running because it's kind of on the chopping block in the year 2154, but she really wants to document all of Pandora's flora and fauna. In this hypothetical, I know you're SecOps cannon fodder, but let's have another hypothetical for a second and say that you're like a PsyOps researcher out in the field. Here's what you're most likely gonna need. Soil sample kit, tissue sample storage unit, RDA compass, RDA binoculars fit for an avatar. These puppies have the capability of infrared or night vision, which is great because the avatars have smaller eyes than the normal Na'vi. Like you can see right here that Neytiri is like, oh my gosh, put out this fire because my eyes can't take it. I already have such good night eye seeing capabilities. There was a better way to say all of that. Next, we got the Aircom handset. It's a satellite phone that's going to give you access to any and all signals being broadcasted by Hell's Gate. And of course, we got the earpiece and the throat mic. So this is the one where you strap it to your throat and then press the little button to talk to people when they're holding your Sully family hostage. This is made for both humans and avatars to communicate with, other humans and avatars. I'm just going to tell you this right now. It's not going to have as long of a range as the Aircom handset, but the distance of the signals can travel pretty far, just not as far as this. I almost forgot. Grace and the other science nerds had to start using their avatars to become basically ambassadors for the RDA and the surrounding Na'vi tribes. In 2154, they were still attempting to repair relations between the Na'vi because something happened. Something bad happened. SecOps personnel in the Omatikaya Clan didn't get along after members of the SecOps chased after some rebellious Na'vi hunters who destroyed a bulldozer. The hunters did this because they were pretty peanut butter and angry about a clear cutting. The SecOps tracked down the hunters to Grace's school. This is where the squad ended up firing upon and successfully eliminating Neytiri's sister, Sawanin. This wasn't good, as Sawanin was the daughter of the Sahik and Oloegtan of the Omatikaya Clan, as in she was the daughter of the clan leaders. So to put it in simple terms, this was big no for the humans. Tensions were high. and we needed peace talks quick. Getting into the Avatar program is incredibly difficult. Scientists like Norm Spellman have dedicated most of their lives preparing for this journey to Pandora and the things that they're gonna do when they get there. You know what some people don't realize about Norm Spellman? He worked incredibly hard to get accepted into the Avatar program. He egregiously studied all of Augustine's work, learned the language of Na'vi. In fact, he studied it for 5 years. Logged 520 hours in link time, completed 3 years of Avatar training, labored away at becoming cream of the crop in terms of everything needed to meet the criteria in order to conduct research on this moon. Then, some guy comes into the picture who has done none of this training and did none of that work and takes the position that was supposed to be Norm's.
For reasons I cannot fathom, the Omatikaya have chosen you. God help us all.
It's interesting to think that the journey to Pandora is so long that Norm was completely unaware of what happened between the SecOps soldiers and the Na'vi hunters. So it's only when he arrives to the moon that he finds out. So that must have really been a bummer for him when he realized that relations between the Na'vi and the humans were at an all-time low. But whilst negotiating with the Na'vi, Augustine still had to cater to the Earth-based bureaucrats and politicians, causing her to become even more bitter than she already was. Which is why we have places like the Site-26 thing. The mobile lab that is Site-26, otherwise known as the Shack, is a remote location that is not completely Pandora and it's not completely human industrial hellscape, reflective of the characters that we follow in the movie. Modular structures like this are created in the grinder. And when coming up with inspiration for the building's appearance, Cameron directed designer James Klein by saying to him, I want it to basically just look like an RV of today. Just make it look like an RV. Since you're part of the SecOps, it sadly means you don't get an avatar body. Instead, you're gonna have to use other, less ideal options. This one is important. It's called a breather pack. You can't really breathe Pandora's air for too long. It's not gonna happen. Well, it can work, but not for too long. It's mainly because it's a dense nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. It produces too much carbon dioxide for your lungs. So you need to wear this when you go outside or you're just not gonna be anymore. Just wear this when you go outside. I think you should be fine. Each rechargeable battery pack that comes with this, it lasts for about 10 hours. Or you could rise through the ranks and get an amp suit, something that was originally used by police forces back on Earth. By the way, the actual name for the amp suit is MK6 Armored Mobile Platform Suit. And some people call it the power suit. And apparently on avatar.com, they call it the Amplified Mobility Platform Suit. And on the James Cameron Avatar Wiki, they also call it the Amplified Mobility Platform Suit. Even though in the visual exploration, they call it the Armored Mobile Platform Suit. We're not going to call it any of these things. We're just going to continue calling it the Amp Suit. I just thought you might want to know what other people are calling it. But I'm not gonna do that. Ty Ruben Ellingson was tasked with taking over the design of this 13-foot, 8-inch mech suit that casually weighs 3,748 pounds. It is massive. This is what it looks like when people who are 5'7" stand next to them. For those curious, yes, I did wear a flannel to Disney World in the middle of the summer. When it comes to combat, especially if I'm going to war with the Na'vi, I would actually much rather be in this than an avatar body. Actually, scratch that. I'd probably want an avatar body because at least that way I don't die. But you're going to do great in the amp suit. It's still going to be a lot safer than being one of those unlucky ground troops. Oh wait, I forgot. You're still working your way up to getting an amp suit one day. I keep forgetting that you're still a ground troop. Yeah, you're going to be fine, dude. Regardless, the driver of the amp suit controls the vehicle like a mechanical avatar. The response time of the suit is instantaneous. It's got steel hands with rubber grips, whatever these feet are. And if you're in the mood, you can punch all the way through a tree trunk or easily lift heavy cargo. It's got imaging pods located everywhere to give you a better idea of what's around you. And it's also going to have 2 rear view mirrors on either side, just in case something may be trying to sneak up on you. Because of the amp suit's size, they made weapons big enough for a 13-foot tall robot. Starting with the amp suit knife developed by Hurt and Fall Arms Manufacturing, Ltd. Buyers gravitated towards it when they unveiled the design. They couldn't get enough of the comically large appearance. Standing around 3 feet or 1,066 millimeters tall and weighing in at 74 pounds or 34 kilograms, this big high tensile alloy knife is attached to the underside of the amp suit Suit's cockpit. Its original purpose was to clear out vines and underbrush in front of it, not to be used in a fight, even though it will be. Then we got the GAU-90 30mm cannon. This beast is a whopping 2,194.6 millimeters, or 7.2 feet long, and weighs 100.7 kilograms or 222 pounds. There's like 3 different kinds of ammo that go into this puppy. It's all 30mm rounds, and that could vary from HEI rounds, which stands for high explosive incendiary. There's penetration rounds and tracer rounds, but mainly this weapon is used for clearing brush in the jungle. But I mean, if a Pandoran animal comes your way, ain't gonna be a problem anymore. That Pandoran animal, it's gonna be with AWA now. Then we got the Bush Boss FD-11. It's a chemical thermal incinerator made by Bush Boss portable chem flame defoliant devices. This is made to burn bushes and clear out foliage. A lot of this stuff is to just clear out foliage. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like we've been talking a lot about clearing out brush recently, so let's give the spotlight to the slash cutter. The thing that clears out all the brush and bedrock so the mine workers can come in and mine unobtainium and then get sick. The Slash Cutter Heavy Duty Model 10 is referred to by the doomed mine workers as the Slice and Dicer, or the Pizza Cutter, because it kind of looks like a pizza. The pizza cutter is a razor-sharp rotating disc made from nothing other than diamond-hard carbon fiber, and it has teeth at the end of it. Look at all these teeth. This thing can slice through rock. We're talking like hard to cut through rock, which is basically like all rock. With the Slice and Dicer being attached to a crane, you can turn the disc into the ground to destroy all the bedrock as well as annihilate all those roots. The same tree roots that are constantly transferring energy and consciousness, get all that stuff that is completely irrelevant to the humans at this point.
What the hell have you people been smoking out there?
It was good at destroying any trace of the Amazon rainforest back on Earth. In fact, that's why they brought this vehicle over to Pandora. The crane supplies liquid helium to the disc in order to prevent the Slice and Dicer from melting off the vehicle. And because of how intense the wear and tear is on this machine, they have to replace the disc every few weeks. Okay, here we go. So one of the only vehicles that isn't mainly designed to knock over trees would be the Ground Assault Vehicle, or the GAV, JL 723. We know at this point in time that the GAV stands for Ground Assault Vehicle. What does the JL and the 723 stand for? I don't know. The vehicle is 3.6 meters long and 1.2 meters wide. They call this turret on the back the giraffe because the crane attached to it can raise the turret operator 3.6 meters above the vehicle. So basically the length of the vehicle, but upwards. They literally use the turret operator as bait. The GAV's job is typically used to draw fire away from the more valuable amp suits or scorpions. I have so many issues with the information that I just presented to you. So they basically are like, hey, we're gonna raise the turret operator up here and any vicious animals can go chase this guy. Or if the Not V are starting to fire their arrows at us, we'll just use this guy as a moving target. And then we got the RDA Boat. Oh, sorry, I mean the 67-1A liquid environment transport, but as you know by now, we're not going to call it that. It's a vessel that's 2.7 meters long and 0.96 meters wide. It seats up to 4 of you and your BFFs, which is great, and holds 30mm sentry guns, typically 2 of them. Back on Earth, the boat can actually reach speeds of 45 knots. That's over our waters. I couldn't figure out how fast it could go over Pandoran waters. There's math and science there that could get us to that solution. But, you know, so like the Samson, the boat's kind of used for more boring stuff like shipping supplies or transporting civilians. But this thing is mainly used for stealth rescues. It's equipped with the classic radar and sonar. But the real highlight of this undervalued thing that we never talk about would be how it's equipped with hush mode engines, reducing the decibel output of these engines to nothing, making it perfect for nighttime missions or rescue missions. Let's take to the freaking skies and look at the AT-99 Scorpion for a second. I am now realizing how long this video is going to be. Anyway, the Scorpion gunships escort the Valkyrie Shuttle into Hell's Gate during landing and out of Hell's Gate during takeoff, mainly protecting it from this little cutie. The Not V call it Gunsip because I don't think they had a word for gunship prior to the humans' arrival. Out of all the aircrafts we're going to be talking about, this one is the smallest. It's clocking in at 12.2 meters long and 8.73 meters wide. But the size allows for significantly better maneuverability. It has twin turbines allowing for easy vertical takeoff and landing. And these turbines combined with the small design allow for the Scorpion to reach a maximum speed of 200 knots, as well as giving it the ability to climb 545 meters per minute. It's the opposite of the RDA boat, as well, one, because it's not aquatic, and two, because it's pretty freaking loud. Like, it's not quiet at all. The rotors have been known to cause stampedes of creatures like stern beasts. The pilot is situated in this cabin, which is sealed and generates breathable oxygen for the pilot, meaning no mask. No mask today. The noise that's initially generated from this craft makes the pilot's location known real quick, but the speed makes it easy to evade your enemies. If you have a skilled enough pilot, the craft can easily outmaneuver any threat and then turn around and use its aerial Mosquito class targeting and missile launch platform on the said hostiles. The targeting computer auto-firing these missiles has a 98.4% success rate. So I'd say the pilot's pretty well protected. Though it also has sonar, which is pretty cool. Now we got the SA-2 Samson tilt rotor, or Samson for short. The lead designer of the Samson, Ty Ruben Ellingson, claimed that there's enough legitimacy to the way the vehicles were designed that people may actually assume they exist. This craft was heavily inspired by the Vietnam War era helicopters that we have back on Earth, the ones that were nicknamed the Huey. The reason for this was that James Cameron, the guy who I highly suspect was involved with the Avatar films at one point in time, wanted these kinds of flying vehicles to be more low-tech, which is why the design was practical and durable rather than clean and futuristic. There's nothing on this craft that is there for purely aesthetic. In the world of Avatar, the Samson has been in use for 100 years back on Earth, but modifications had to be made to the craft in order to use it on Pandora because of the whole electromagnetic fields, because of its unmaneuverability. I feel like that's definitely not a word. Because it's not as maneuverable as the Scorpion, the Samson is not typically used for combat missions. In reality, the Samson spends most of its time dropping off supplies to places like Site 26 and other areas. It can even carry portable labs like Site 26. This is why the craft is 15.9 meters long and 14.99 meters wide. It's also going to be slower than the Scorpion, as it has a max speed of 144 knots. But like the Scorpion, the cockpit of the Samson can be sealed and pumped full of breathable air. However, the cargo area of the ship is going to lack any of those capabilities and will be exposed to the elements. You can fit a max 12 passengers in the back, but they're all gonna have to wear Exo-packs. A lot of the Samson's protection actually comes from the MBS-9M 50 caliber Hydras that can be mounted to the doors on either side of the craft. It's another tri-barrel that can fire 1850 millimeter uranium needle rounds per minute. The scope on this has an 80 times optical zoom, thermal vision, and night vision. And the part that just baffles me is that it's only 30 pounds and can easily detach from its mount and go handheld mode. But don't worry, the craft is also equipped with air-to-air and air-to-ground rockets that are mainly used as a last resort option. The thing that wishes it could be the king of the sky is the C-21 Dragon assault ship. The C-21 Dragon was the artificial dragon in comparison to the real one, Taruk. This vehicle has been known to be impenetrable when it comes to Na'vi weapons, but unlike Taruk, the soldiers in the ship still have to look up. The Dragon is 41.15 meters long and 31.7 meters wide, earning the name amongst the Na'vi as Gunsip Ap-A, meaning large gunship, which tracks. This is the largest helicopter back on Earth. The size of the ship is going to make it the main transport for all the SecOps soldiers on Pandora. It can carry up to 10 amps, and it's also packing heat. When Ty Ruben Ellingson was also tasked with designing the Dragon, Cameron described what he wanted, saying it's a fantasy vehicle, reminiscent of World War II big bombers, but with multiple rotors, multiple cockpits, and eccentric weaponry. Think of the Dragon as being a big, muscular beetle. Dude, this thing is equipped with rockets of every kind, as well as 8 50mm sentry guns, 4 of them at the front, 2 of them on the rear, and 1 on either side. The nubs on the 2 wings that you see right here carry a vast array of rockets. It also has a first aid kit, you know, so I feel like that was less substantial than the other things that I mentioned. But, you know, I feel like another reason why they named it the Dragon was the moment where Quaritch is like, let's switch to incendiaries and then burn down the forest. This thing has got so many rockets. In an activist survival guide, it said that the Dragon has enough firepower to devastate an area the size of Manhattan in just 6 seconds. Unlike the other aircrafts we talked about, the Dragon's computer system possesses this new kind of technology. It's a new kind of detection technology. All right, so basically it's installed with IFF codes, as in identification friend or foe codes, to detect between personnel and hostiles. This significantly helps the TAC and TAC weapons better defend the oversized Beetle, as well as all the other RDA cannon fodder out there. Oh, and the computer systems within the ship can grow a database of information to better assist the whole personnel or hostile detection thing. But being able to carry all this equipment comes with its drawbacks, as this ship can only travel a max speed of 120 knots. But like the Samson or the Scorpion, the cockpit seals shut to create a pressurized environment so you can pump oxygen into it and then not die with your mask off. So we got that going for us. So in 2154, the Not-V and the humans did a bunch of fighting because Quaritch lost the plot and then challenged the forest people to a war that they clearly were asking for. The Not-V won, not because of their skill, but because AWA decided to jump in at the last possible second to make all the animals really angsty so they could sacrifice themselves in order to defeat the Sky People. Subsequently, the humans of Hell's Gate were sent back to Earth, while other RDA workers and PsyOps personnel remained on Pandora. It turns out it wasn't a happy ever after. After all, issues between the Not-V and the remaining humans were coming up left and right. It took exactly like 45 seconds before conflict started happening again. Former RDA employees like Catherine Hale needed to establish a new mine to keep Hell's Gate running and full of oxygen. They would still be using the ESM-01 mine. However, before the RDA left, they destroyed the big mining excavators that you saw at the beginning of the first film, leaving Hell's Gate and the assets at Hell's Gate intact, but giving the remaining humans a huge disadvantage. Probably with the intent that they would die off. So the remaining humans needed solutions, and they needed them quick. But after the whole big battle defending the Tree of Souls, the Omatikaya were a little bitter, to say the least, and didn't want the humans expanding any further into the forest. They didn't fully understand that the humans who stayed behind weren't their enemies. Jake Sully, the new Oloekton of the Omatikaya, had to try his best to pull a Grace Augustine and settle disputes between the angry everyone. But no matter what he did, arrows were still being shot into the side of bulldozers. In 2168, I know we skipped a lot of years, but in 2168, the RDA arrived for round 2. The one in charge of carrying out Operation Invasion Pandora would be General Francis Ardmore. The 53-year-old 4-star general got the position of Expeditionary Force Commander because she's an incredible strategist. She won multiple wars back on Earth. Don't know exactly what wars she fought in, but she won them. Here's a direct quote of hers from the High Ground comics. Let me tell you how this plays out. You burn those assets and I kill everyone on the ground. Everyone. Kids. Pregnant women. Grandma in her rocker. Yeah, she's definitely a vibe. And if I'm being peanut butter and honest with you, I think Francis is so much worse than Quaritch. Ardmore is incredibly steady and way more calculated. I'm not saying Quaritch was bad at his job.
It is my job to keep you alive. I will not succeed. Not with all of you.
But the Colonel was full of vengeance, which made him more prone to making monumental mistakes. The invasion of Pandora is authorized by the highest levels of government back on Earth, and it was pitched to the public as something entirely different than what they were doing. No joke, the RDA launched massive disinformation campaigns, which is really not that surprising after reading all those intercepted documents from Hell's Gate that we were reading pretty recently. It wasn't just one ISV arriving at Pandora this time. It was 10. It was like a flock of ISVs. It was a bevy of ISVs. It was and they were heavily armed this time around. Even the Valkyrie shuttles were armed. The humans were definitely scared, and they were over-prepared because of how badly Max Patel just completely kicked their butts the first time around. When nearing orbit of Polyphemus, General Ardmore broadcasted a signal to Hell's Gate. She communicated to the remaining humans that under solar unity law, those still occupying Hell's Gate would be arrested and sentenced to no longer being alive. However, she was willing to grant the workers amnesty if they chose to voluntarily turn themselves in. During this broadcast, Charles Stringer, the new administrator of the RDA, because Selfridge, even claims that the remaining people at Hell's Gate are going to be more valuable as employees rather than inmates. So if they turn themselves in, everything would go back to normal. No bad blood. The new/not new workers would receive full pay and even bonuses. You want to know what happened? Well, a lot of the, like 50% of the humans ditched Sully and all the Navi. Half the humans turned themselves in, doing so out of fear of the new inevitable threat of the RDA, who is going scorched earth this time, or just based on the simple fact that a lot of the remaining humans didn't want to keep dealing with the ungrateful and uncompromising Omatikaya. When returning to Pandora, one of the things that the humans were wanting back was the assets at Hell's Gate, things that they spent decades building. Like we got the factory complex, the refinery, the grinder, unset unobtainium shipments, which still are worth a heck ton of money, the mine, and the power plant. This would give the humans a head start when re-arriving on Pandora. So the rules of engagement were simple. Sec Ops were told that if you take fire, you hit back. Anywhere except the factory and the power plant. The goal was to target the rebels, not the infrastructure. Jake was able to take the old Valkyrie shuttle up into space to meet this fleet of ISVs in order to do some peace negotiations with the general. The reason he and a bunch of other Navi who joined him weren't captured on the spot is because he strategically placed daisy cutters at all the assets that I just listed. Needless to say, negotiations went south and peace was not established. But during their meeting, it's like a big power move. Jake blew up the refinery to prove a point. So we as the humans, we don't have a refinery anymore. Now we're the RDA in the year 2170. Deal with it. This is when the RDA meets the sea and other places, but mainly the sea. James Cameron, the creator of the series, has done, at the present moment, 72 submersible dives, 33 of them being his trip down to the Titanic wreckage. And so his understanding of water-based vehicles and deep-sea diving definitely contributed to the look and the feel of the new ships in the way of water. Designer Ben Proctor went on to say that either things had strong elements from the animal kingdom or we used real-world reference, particularly that of Cold War military hardware. It allowed us to identify that there's one school of design for the RDA that's kind of Eastern European. They don't ever build anything small. It's go big or go home, which is what Jim said. That infuses a lot of stuff we designed. Let's start with Bridgehead. The humans shifted their motives this season. Instead of mining just resources, like a bunch of chumps, they're now turning Pandora into Earth 2.0 because they successfully destroyed the last one. We go around too. By 2170, the RDA has grown so big as a company that there's barely any division between the RDA and the military. So even though you got caught 14 years ago, let's randomly make up a new convenient way to bring you back. There you go. You're now a new Sec Ops soldier with the same exact purpose as before. It's almost like what they did in the movies. General Ardmore's ISV is called the Manifest Destiny, which is named after the USS Mississippi, an American steam-powered warship that was also called the Manifest Destiny ship because it helped lead a charge across the United States and was destined to take over North America. Because it wouldn't be Avatar without, blatant criticism of the military-industrial complex. The ISV Manifest Destiny, along with various other newly revamped ISVs, are now equipped with these landing modules known as Sling loads. When attempting round 2, the RDA is not messing around. They made it so the ISVs could actually enter the atmosphere this time, as well as land. The engines of the ISVs are going to effectively destroy everything below the landing module. Then they're going to plant the thing into the ground. Each module is the size of a 40-story office building. A lot, and I mean a lot, of preparation was done just to land on the moon. They didn't have a 3D printer like Hell's Gate's grinder Yeah, so the first series of landing modules have stuff like bulldozers and road headers, then other stuff in them. Actually, each module has 50 amp suits. 50 amp suits in order to make sure that the amp suits, the construction vehicles, and other large expensive equipment are okay during the whole descent into Pandora. They're all suspended by hydraulic lifters. The landing module is caked in reflective shielding that protects against engine radiation during the bright descent into Pandora's atmosphere. Just look at them plumes. Don't worry, I'm almost done explaining this. There are also micro radiators everywhere. These will regulate the sling load's thermal temperature during its voyage. The landing module is going to be lowered by miles upon miles of cable and then land on these huge shock-absorbing legs that can adapt to the surface. All of this for less than like 3 minutes of screen time. I love it. By the way, I feel like I should warn you, the HAB module, as in the habitation module that you're going to be staying in for the next 6 years, is combined with the landing module. The issue is that within the next 6 years, the place that you're going to be doing all your cryo-sleep in is going to be in close proximity with the entire place that is holding all of the machinery. And this machinery is still powered by fuel. So a lot of the sling load passengers who wake up from cryosleep have this thing called dozer breath. It's like morning breath, but it's a billion times worse. So you, being a conveniently resurrected SecOps soldier who's gonna wake up on this landing module, you're gonna need some mouthwash. Then all you SecOps crew people are gonna get into their amp suits and then their construction vehicles and use these massive ramps to exit the module and immediately secure the landing site. The ground troops, like you, are gonna wear these hazard suits made from the same material that they use to protect volcanologists. All of this so that we can get to work on building Bridgehead City. See, we're almost there. We're talking about Bridgehead now, people, don't worry. So the RDA Condev, or the RDA Consolidated Development, is this new administration that was put in charge of developing Bridgehead City and everything in it. To some, Bridgehead is known as the City of 1,000 Cranes because it's in this perpetual state of construction. The overall design is largely inspired by Long Beach, California, this beautiful place that for sure doesn't have any negative effect on the surrounding population. Unlike Hell's Gate, Bridgehead was meant to be permanent. The RDA's focus is no longer mining, as we previously discussed. It's now building tomorrow, as stated on these fresh propaganda posters. Bridgehead is a big ol' circle with 1 foot on land and 1 foot in the water. The core of this city is 6 miles in diameter. Throughout the place, you can see some of the propaganda posters with the new motto, "Building Tomorrow," even though they were the ones who destroyed yesterday. Once Bridgehead is complete, they plan on having a population of 2 million people. Surrounding the city of tomorrow, we have approximately 19 miles or 30.5 kilometers of defensive walls. They brought back the turrets, but this time they're not on the walls. Well, actually, some of them are still on the walls, but they set up all the turrets and missile launchers on their own pillar concrete pylons. I feel like there is an easier way to say that. If you're a human being flying anywhere close to this defense system, you need to carry an IFF transponder so it can tell these cute little cupcakes not to blast you out of the sky. Then we casually have a kill zone that extends 2 miles or 3.2 kilometers out, meaning the entire kill zone is 10 miles or 16 kilometers in diameter. They were able to create this protective barrier by doing what they do best and releasing a bunch of toxic pesticides and herbicides into the kill zone to maintain this defensive doom circle. Just knowing that the slinger is out there, I don't know. It doesn't seem like enough, guys. Let's take a tour of this thing going clockwise. You know, like a clock. Here's the industrial harbor. It's part of the North Side Industrial Zone, focusing on making and maintaining boats and other marine vehicles. There's this thing happening. You'll probably notice that along the defensive wall are 2 sea gates, one at the north and one in the south. And south side of this pollution puddle is where they're developing the future site for the corporate HQ of the RDA. In 2170, these buildings were not fully constructed yet, but the foundation is still there. So, you know, these cookie cutter buildings over here house the troops and construction workers. Along the defensive land wall, there's a gate on the west side and south side. All this is the south side industrial zone, where they must produce air vehicles like the Seawasp because it's right next to the airfield, but it's also right next to the marina. So, you know, it could be both. They could also be making boats. I don't know. Who's to say? I'm only going to say something if I know for certain that it's canon and like backed by books or interviews. etc. So this is me saying I don't know exactly what they're producing there. This is the administration zone for anyone who cares. This area is known as the industrial core. If you haven't figured it out yet, there's a lot of construction activity happening in the city of 1,000 cranes. There's another north gate up here, giving humans access to other rivers in Pandora. Behind that gate is a dam, just in case the river becomes flooded with water during a storm or something. The dam also is going to make sure that no unwanted creatures are going to start entering the waters of Bridgehead City. And when it comes to building, we start with the Shipyard Factory 3D printer. By 2170, this is where most of Bridgehead's largest and complex equipment is made. Shipyard's 3D printer is Bridgehead's largest printer. It is 67 meters long, 29 meters wide, and 14 meters high. So it's pretty big. The printer uses a thing called DLD, as in direct laser deposition, where it uses a laser to heat up metal powders so it can shape it into hot moldable material. And then it adds a thin layer of cooling metal after the material is shaped. The reason that you're seeing multiple print heads is so that they can interweave different materials in whatever vehicle or machine or structure it's printing without really slowing the process down. That way you get the most complete version of the product after the printing is done. The Condev essentially made the most efficient construction crew in the entire galaxy. So a lot of the construction is done with robots that are either automated or remote controlled. You'll see that they have sensors located all over these things so they can connect with the network the Condev developed. I just realized this, that I may not have mentioned the RDA D-22 Bulldozer, a vehicle that doesn't get enough love, in my opinion, because I literally forgot to talk about it when I was talking about the Avatar 1 stuff. But you know what? Why not talk about it now? Here we are with a 39.7 meter long, 13.35 meter tall, and 26.93 meter wide vehicle that was made for deforestation. To me, this vehicle looks most like a creature. Like, look at the eyes and the teeth. It's looking like it wants to experience love and happiness. But at the same time, it's all like, I've been hurt before. And I'm like, I can fix you. It's operated by remote control, usually by some guy eating corn puffs across the other end of the forest. So when Sawanan and the other Na'vi hunters did an act of vandalism against the RDA, it was just simply that. I don't think anyone got hurt. All they had to do was just 3D print another bulldozer. And then done. Problem solved. But then the RDA Sec Ops just decided to take Sawanan off the moon. The model MCRA 220, made by manufacturer FDM Heavy Equipment. The vehicle is 19.55 meters long and 12.75 meters tall. And the cranes that you see right here can extend up to 99 meters long. This big piece of thing is fully automated, but if need be, it can be operated by one remote pilot who's a human. Occasionally. The max speed of this thing is 67 miles per hour, so it's pretty fast for its size. The vehicle is just 2 mobile construction cranes to further add to the cranes in the city of 1,000 cranes. Okay, let's get back to the network that I was talking about. The Hexbots, also known as the Swarm Assemblers. These things, they creep me out for some reason. The construction robots and vehicles in Avatar 2, The Way of the Waters, were designed to look like industrial creatures. There's like 4 different types of these Fever Dream inspired robots, and they're all made from the same manufacturer, FDM Heavy Equipment. The technical name for this monstrosity is the Model QX-19 Block 3, but we call this swarm assembler the Big Quad, mainly because of the 4 legs that you see right here that are equipped with rubber bumpers and shock absorbing rubber pads for feet. Because of the sheer weight and size of this thing, the legs can move at a max speed of only 7 miles per hour. It has 2 massive arms to lift heavy objects with. Oh, and the exterior is sealed so that the big quad can endure the extremely muddy environments that is wherever the RDA deforested. All these bars are here to protect the bot just in case something falls on it. These things will lay out the foundation so other Hexbots can build upon it. Also, this one is responsible for keeping an eye on like all the other Hexbots. Another reason is that it's equipped with these depth sensing cameras that create a live 3D model of the work environment. So they don't just see what's in front of them, they see everything. But it's important to note that when it comes to the swarm assemblers, they all got cameras and sensors so they can all keep in flow with each other. The next swarm assembler would be the Hexbot Heavy. It's roughly the size of a dog. like a big dog. Like the big quad, it has 2 versatile arms on the front. But if we look at the back, there are 2 modular arms where it can mount whatever tool we need. Over here are fans for the cooling of the batteries. And we just head over to the feet for a second. It has suction devices so it can climb structures and work from anywhere. On the ceiling, in my nightmares, like look at it, welding a building up here or welding the Seadragon together. They do a lot of welding. The Hexbot Light is the smallest swarm assembler, like the other swarm assemblers that we've seen thus far. It's got 6 legs and 2 arms on the front, except this time, we only get 1 modular attachment point on the back to hold the tool for things like welding, grinding, riveting, or even painting. The last Hexbot is gonna make the world go round. It's the Construction Material Hauler Support Bot. It has a big flatbed in order to deliver payloads and material to the other Hexbots. That material could be pipes, panels, utility components, whatever you could possibly think of, as long as your imagination is severely limited to nothing but construction materials. The support bot basically feeds the Hexbots. Its arm over here has an extension with 8 suction cups, and it's used to efficiently carry things like glass sheets or metal sheets or other material that's in the form of a sheet. The activity on the ground can get pretty crowded, so the RDA invented these construction blimps. I said we were going to talk about the construction blimps way earlier in this video, and here we are. The blimps are going to float over all the creepy robots so they can easily pick up and drop off heavy supplies. At the end of their workday, all the Hexbots are going to fold up into a little cube so they can fit into their own slot for recharging. Bots like the big quad take 48 hours to charge. But that's only because it has a really big battery, a battery that allows it to be a portable charge port for the other Hexbots, if need be. With all the Hexbots working together, they can complete the construction of 1 building within 6 days. The bots created places like the Ops Center, that's located somewhere over here. Think of the Ops Center as the brain of Bridgehead City. It's where most of the military, fishing, mining, and construction operations are conceived and then put into action. It's made up of really interesting things like conference rooms, data centers, and etc. This is where about 180 civilian RDA employees and roughly 120 SecOps personnel work. The east wing of the Ops Center is going to be focused on maintaining everything within Bridgehead, while the south end is concerned with matters outside of the city. My favorite area in this entire building would have to be the Holofloor. It's a 29-foot or 9-meter long floor. Anyone can step right onto the floor to bring up any form of image or data they need in the form of a hologram. The overhead ring contains cameras and sensors. When you step onto the floor, your body and movements are going to be tracked, so you can instantly interact with the holo interface panels. Under the glass is going to be a large grid of hologram projectors. Because of this, no matter where you're standing in the room, the quality of the hologram is going to be sharp. Like seriously, no matter what angle you're at when looking at these images, it's going to be clear. The only time the image gets slightly distorted is when you're walking through it. But within the design of this holofloor is something called a redundant emitter. And this is going to help prevent those images from getting warped when you barge through the room. Then we got the Bridgehead Neurolab brain imaging booth, also known as the DPF's Neurosect E7.2T scanner. But once again, as you know, we're not going to call it that. This is a byproduct of the link system from the Avatar program. It expanded on the kind of brain data that Max Patel was gushing over before. The imaging booth is going to allow you to do things like get more data out of the brain, but it's mainly used for extracting visual memories out of the person in real time. So then they can project those memories onto a different it's like a smaller holofloor, but we're just mainly using it to unethically extract information out of prisoners. So, how could I forget to mention that the Bridgehead Ops Center is the place that you're going to find the best wearable technology. When it comes to the clothing of Bridgehead City, James Cameron wanted subtle changes, saying we wanted the human spaces to be highly recognizable. You could take them for granted in a sense. The same thing with their clothing aesthetic. There are a lot of really neat details in the clothing, but they're not meant to be jaw-dropping, stunning moments. People wear shirts and ties. The details are sometimes quite different in the specifics, but the overall gesture is quite recognizable because we wanted to have a baseline as to what exotic is in the Pandoran world. Like look at Charles Stringer, for example. The clothes were practical, but the accessories were also practical as they were highly functional. The electronics became an extension of their outfits. In the Ops Center, for example, you can see so many different RDA personnel wearing all kinds of different wearable technology. Over here, they're wearing glasses with holo screens. Actually, you know what? A lot of the technology that they're wearing is like holographic generators. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. I like how there's not a lot of attention drawn to these details, but they're still there because they add further depth and world building. The tech on the RDA personnel's clothing is meant to work in unison with the rest of the technology around them, like the holofloors, the screens, the consoles, the tablets. Oh boy, the upgraded tablets. When designing the more polished tablets, Ben Proctor went on to explain that these are much more detailed and beautifully built out of actual black anodized aluminum in different finishes by Weta Workshop. They come in different flavors. We have a science one, which is white, and then we have a construction one, which is yellow. Proctor also went on to explain the importance of nailing the design of the consoles, saying that the consoles and screens function as a virtual campfire that bring your actors around it to get them to be near one another so you can frame them. These kinds of things are essential in your shots as they're going to be next to the actor and put them in focus. But going back to the clothing for a second, when it comes to the Sec Ops or the Recoms, the camo pattern on their uniforms are inspired by Pandora's forest flora. I love how I never noticed that until I was like, wait a second. Wait a second. Costume designer Deborah L. Scott went on to say that we had to dress a large number of soldiers in new uniforms that reflected this adjusted approach to taking the planet. Meaning one of the first things they integrated was having one standardized uniform for all the security ops, or soldiers at this point, because it makes them all look like they're one big proper military operation instead of looking like we just hired a bunch of rando soldiers and mercenaries. So when the fashion gets more aggressive, we get the Skel Suit, made by manufacturer Yuki and brought to Pandora by the RDA. The model Exo-32 light mobility platform is like the AMP suit, but more indoor appropriate. Cameron didn't want a big, tough, bulky mech suit, so the design team made a minimal version of that. With this slimmer design, you can bring it into human-shaped environments like the greatest place on the entire moon, the Holofloor. Plus, it's safe to use when working around unprotected construction workers or Sec Ops people. It actually has automatic sensors to automatically avoid colliding into any obstacles. The suit is going to be 2.9 meters tall, so the average height of like a tall Na'vi, which is still not tall enough for the women that I meet on Tinder. Once you step into the suit, the length of the suit's arms actually adjusts to be proportionate with the length of the driver. Then the moment you're locked in, the force feedback system makes you feel the resistance of anywhere you step or anything you touch, making these arms and legs feel even more like an extension of you. The limbs are made of steel, but are reinforced by carbon fiber. They kind of feel more like the naturally occurring carbon fiber that reinforces the bones of the Na'vi. There are small motors inside the joints of these steel limbs that take care of the weight when you're handling heavy cargo, running up terrain, or training in robotic martial arts when someone is clearly trying to talk to you, but you just keep ignoring them and hitting a punching bag an unnecessary amount of times, even though they're right there and you can clearly tell. Semantics. But apparently, robotics martial arts is the thing in this world now. So in terms of running, the Skel Suit can keep up with the max speed of the Na'vi and the max speed of the AMP suit, as in it can go 20 miles per hour or 32 kilometers per hour. The existence of the Skel Suit made it possible for Avatar Na'vi like Jake Sully to comfortably use human weapons and continue breaking the third law of Awa, which is using metals from the ground. You're not allowed to do that. Where did these laws come from, you ask? I don't know. This is why Jake is seen using the Skel M69AR. He even has his own custom wooden stock on the weapon. The reason you'll sometimes see a camera on the front of this weapon is because you can't easily aim down the sights when operating a Skel Suit, so the camera is going to send the driver an image into their mask in order to give them a more precise aim. When it comes to flamethrowers, we are so back. The Skel Suit flamethrower, or the FTM3A1 series, is a pretty interesting thing because you can fold the stock of the flamethrower forward and then clip it to the side of the suit. Makes it really convenient for taking it out, and you can easily put it away. It's based on the old flamethrower models like the Bush Boss FD3 or the FD11, except this time it can shoot the flames further and get more fuel from a hose that's attached to a tank that's also attached to the Skel Suit. And let's say you're not in the mood to keep using the flamethrower, well, you can easily take off the fuel hose and the fuel tank and then replace it with the bullet hose and a bullet tank storage thing for seemingly unlimited ammo during the fight scenes in the movie. I know I'm probably skipping a lot of things right now, but I want to talk about the Seawasp model AT-101, brought to us by FDM Aerospace. Think of this as the severely upgraded Scorpion. The Seawasp kinda has this proclivity for being the fastest rotorcraft on Pandora, as it can travel a max speed of 284 knots. Or if you're from America, that is gonna be 327 miles per hour. Or if you're from the other places, it's gonna be 526 kilometers per hour. It has engines on the back and a quad rotor system, meaning we got conjoined double rotor systems on each wing. This allows it to fly like a jet or hover like a helicopter. The reason this massive technological advancement is so peanut butter and fast is primarily because it has to keep up with the Mag-Lev trains, the Valkyrie Shuttle, and it's used for Tulkun spotting. Each of these crafts is equipped with pingers, which are acoustic and light beacons that signal where a Tulkun is at. The pilot can shoot one of these pingers into the back of a Tulkun. The front of the pinger is going to pierce through the hard outer shell, and then that spike is going to expand outwards so it can lock in. So the Seadragon can start doing the hunting. It has an array of 16 Hellfire missiles. It's covered with a light metallic gray material to better blend in with the horizon and make it harder for hostiles to see it coming. It's also covered in a fine honeycomb pattern. The material of this is going to add durability, but it's also going to absorb radar. This craft is 14 meters long without a chin gun. Oh yeah, it has a chin gun. So the chin gun is basically a turret that attaches to the front. Proctor claimed that this vehicle, the Seawasp, is more reminiscent of a fighter jet than a helo, which makes sense, as the design, especially the gold coating on the canopy, looks similar to the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II or the F-22 Raptor, as we all know. They didn't just upgrade the Scorpion, they threw the old Samson in the trash and upgraded the heck out of that design to the point where it became the SA-9 Kestrel gunship, made by manufacturer Aerospatiale. The Kestrel became a heavier weight class than the RDA's older general utility aircraft, the SA-2 Samson. It's way faster than the Samson. The Kestrel has a max speed of 235 knots, in comparison to the Samson's max speed of 144 knots. The huge twin turbines that are going to give you that speed need to be protected by strong intake louvers. Everything got an upgrade. Even the rockets are designed to be quicker at leaving their holsters and hitting their targets. Plus, it's bigger. We're talking 20 meters long. The Samson was in use for 100 years prior to its arrival on Pandora. So when the Samson got to Pandora, modifications had to be made to the craft to handle the environment. But it still wasn't designed to transport avatars. Like if we time travel back to the year 2154, we can see how cramped the avatars look in there. But now with the SA-9, we got a larger cargo bay made with avatars in mind. Even the canopy is now bigger. It's now a big bubble canopy that gives the pilot a much wider field of view than ever before. The canopy is going to be dipped in this glare reducing coating, which is going to give it a blue tint. The windows were most likely inspired by the Bell AH-1 Cobra, but with the Kestrel, the windows are more insect-like, something kind of like a dragonfly. Oh my goodness. There are these new magnetic cancellation units placed everywhere throughout the craft. This allows for the Kestrel electronics to function properly, even when they're in high concentrations of intense magnetic fields. You and I, we don't gotta worry about electronics failing in the Hallelujah Mountains anymore. But we still gotta worry about AWA's immune response, because when it comes to that, we're not doing so hot. The military overhaul is evident here. According to Proctor, Cameron wanted the Kestrel gunship to be the Black Hawk of Pandora. It has reduced IR heat signature to help evade insurgent missiles. Oh yeah, and when it comes to warfare, at the end of each of these subwings is resting an HNF GAU 33K stub wing gun, which as you may know, is a 30mm Gatling autocannon capable of firing 1,750 rounds per minute. in the most casual way possible. Located on either side of the cargo bay is going to be the MBS-23B Hydra B Pintle Mount Heavy machine gun. The soldiers operating these turrets use cameras on them to send a signal to their headset in order to get a closer image and hit their target from a lot farther away. It's kind of like the cameras that they're using with the Skel Suit. In fact, it's exactly like the cameras that they're using with the Skel Suit. These 3 barrels that you see on the front of the MBS have a new pattern shroud to it that improves upon the durability and cooling of the thing. It also comes with the classic Hellfire missiles, except this time they come with real-time fuse control and redundant fire and forget targeting systems. It uses this brand new annihilation system utilizing incendiary warheads for maximum efficiency when carrying out the one thing they do best, which is defoliating the jungle and clearing out more of that brush. It's also equipped with not 1, but 2 KM-722 dual chin guns. The dual part because it has twin barrels. Made by Griffin Defense Systems, the KM-722 is made up of 2 20mm autocannons that, if need be, can fire 750 to 1,000 rounds per minute. Once again, in a very casual and calm way. This Seadragon, it's like the Dragon assault ship, but not. The reason I say this is because, well, 1, both their names have dragon in it, and 2, it shares a similar purpose as the other dragon, except it's even bigger this time around. And it's the main transport of a whole bunch of vehicles that we're definitely going to talk about. The design of this whale of a ship was done by manufacturer General Dynamics. But in real life, the task of designing this was actually given to Ben Proctor, someone that we clearly have not mentioned yet. When designing this mobile HQ, Proctor claimed that the Seadragon is my reef village, so to speak. Me, this guy, I interpreted this as Proctor going all out in terms of how much effort he was putting into designing it. I don't know if I talked about the size yet, but it's pretty big. We're talking a length of 121 meters long. Or if you're like me and you come from the place of cheeseburger eating space cowboys, then that's going to be 397 feet long, which, as I've previously stated about 50,000 times, is pretty big. But this isn't just any big ol' ship. It's a wing in-ground effect ship. In order to keep up with the Tulkun you're unethically hunting, you gotta turn up the prop rotors on this thing to provide the ship with enough thrust lift into the hydrofoils. Then it's gonna gain enough air to coast over the waves. The Seadragon can then reach speeds of 130 knots, helping it keep up with the Seawasps. And unfortunately, keeping up with the Tulkun as well. In case of emergency, self-inflating rafts are deployed automatically, just in case the crew is too distracted fighting off an incredibly annoyed Neytiri, or the entire Omatikaya clan that disappears for the last act of the film, or an angsty teenager with a fire extinguisher, or Scoresby's hubris, or Quaritch's improper planning and assumption. Like a lot of other vehicles that we talked about in this video that is way too long for its own good, the appearance of this ship kind of takes on the form of an animal. Parts of the ship are designed to look like manta ray horns, and they even illuminated openings of the ship with red light. Also, there's red paint lining the ship, but the largest concentration of red would be inside of it, like at the center, making the front of the Seadragon look like a mouth. It's a ship that is designed to consume things, Ben Proctor explained. At one point in time, in a spooky, bizarre way, the vehicle opens its entire head into kind of a feeding orifice, so to speak, because it's going to be metaphorically feeding on those Tulkun.
What is it?
Ooh, tragic story time. Dr. Ian Garvin, flight of the Tulkun over here, is a field researcher in xenomarine biology. He was on Pandora conducting research, as field researchers in xenomarine biology typically do. Whenever the books about Avatar mention him, they claim that he's a lot like Dr. Grace Augustine, in a sense where he's stuck between wanting to conduct pure scientific research, but having to constantly save his department from getting shut down. He would spend his days chilling on a marine version of the Site 26 mobile lab. He even made it so the lab could dock on land, so he could get familiar with the local tribes like the Omatikaya and learn about the beauty of their culture and their close relationship with their Tulkun brothers and sisters. Through his research, Garvin somehow found out that this material, Amrita, exists in the Tulkun brain. So thanks to him, we're going drilling. It's so awful. The entire focus of the setups operation is basically harvesting Amrita, a material that just stops aging in humans. And one vial of it is apparently going for approximately $80 million back on Earth. To do this, the setups have constructed a massive medical grade drill, appropriately called the Tulkun drill crane, to get us to this point where we're in the mouth of the Tulkun, just drilling away into a lifeless corpse. We have to utilize a bunch of the other setups vehicles that are contained within the Seadragon. The first one would be the Picador. The Picadors carry the weapons for herding the giant pacifist alien whales. It's got a 90mm depth charge grenade launcher, also known as the Chunker grenade launcher, and most importantly, a sound cannon. The deafening underwater concussions produced from the depth charges prevent the Tulkun from being able to escape by diving further down into the ocean. Then we bring in the sound cannons, which are inspired by riot control speakers and are used to further guide the Tulkun into a path the RDA wants them to be moving in. The 32-foot-long boat is equipped with 1,000 horsepower engines and dual Hamilton jet drives, making the max speed 58 knots. And when wave jumping, it can keep a max speed of 40 knots, meaning it's perfect for keeping up with and herding Tulkun, as those creatures can only travel at a max speed of like 22 knots on average. I think it's 22 knots. And then we got the Mako Submersible, or the model MS3 Type 2. It works together with the Picador to herd Tulkun from below. On any given Tuesday, you'll find the Mako Submersibles hanging out, literally hovering over the moon pool of the Seadragon. They have torpedoes, but they can also launch like torpedoes. And you want to know something? I'm actually surprised with the speed of this one. Apparently the Mako Submersible can only travel at a max speed of 28 knots, just a little bit faster than the max speed of a Tulkun. The rear planes located on the rear are going to help turn the vehicle, but they're also going to keep out kelp from, you know, wrapping itself around the propellers. The entire submersible is about 9 meters long, and it has one gunner and one pilot. When it's not ruining the day of nearby whales, it uses things like net torpedoes, darts, and high explosive torpedoes to protect the Seadragon from unwanted wildlife or the locals. But when chasing Tulkun, the sub is going to use a rotary spear gun to launch a harpoon into the whale. And then once that harpoon stabs the animal, the lift bag attached to it is going to inflate, further preventing the Tulkun from diving down into the waters or just escaping in general. When piloting the submersible, you're going to have a holographic head-up display key showing an entire sonar map of the underwater terrain. There's even rear-facing sonar sensors on the back, as rear-facing sensors would typically be located, to give you a more 360 map of your surroundings. There's also a searchlight at the bottom, which helps with the whole seeing everything around you. The exterior of the submersible is going to be made of impact-resistant polycarbonate, but if that fails at protecting you, there's an emergency hatch at the back of the cabin that can easily open for escape. Here's the little Mako team badge emblem. It's got a little shark. And then the Matador boat comes by to end the animal. When talking about the equipment designed for this vessel, Ben Proctor went on to say, the use of a bright red color is reminiscent of industrial equipment and also suggests the machine's murderous purpose. It is a 15.2 meter long vessel with a deep V hull. On the back are twin jet drives that propel the crew of 8 through the waters at a max speed of 45 knots. It also comes with a depth charge launcher, a heavy-duty harpoon launcher, and 3 50 caliber Hydra machine guns. Cause why not? The design team examined real harpoon guns used for whaling in order to get inspiration for this harpoon launcher, the one that's mounted on a dedicated swivel at the bow of the ship. If you're like, oh no, I have to reload my harpoon launcher because we're in the middle of a chase. Well, the projectiles are kept on the side of the ship. So when the harpoon launcher needs a reload, you just quickly turn to the side to get a fresh new harpoon. I know that what they're doing with these harpoons is evil and unethical or whatever, but the reloading process is like really satisfying. So at least we got that. Oh, the crab suit. The crab suit, or as some of you weirdos know it as, the Model SMP-2. It's an amphibious assault submersible amplified motility platform. Technically, it's the underwater amp suit. But this version is modeled after a crab, which is probably what gave it the name crab suit. When it comes to the arms of the crab suit, you control it with the same kind of force feedback technology that you would use on the Skel Suit or the Amp Suit. But when it comes to the legs, you're gonna need foot pedals to control them. It's not gonna mirror the movements of your legs. The foot pedals are gonna control all 4 legs at the same time. And you can also use the pedals to accelerate or not accelerate the submersible. But give me a second. We're gonna talk about the submersible aspect, but just give me 1 second. I'm still talking about the limbs, specifically the arm ones. In this book, it said that the grip force of the crab suit's manipulators, as in the hands, is 3/4 the bite force of a great white shark on Earth. The legs have 2-toed feet that walk on the knuckles. They're flexible enough to grab onto underwater plants or structures. And this all comes in handy after you stop a Tulkun in its tracks, because the crab suit submersibles over and plants anchors into the creature's armored back, and then starts wrangling heavy towing lines in order to bring other equipment in. Okay, so when you flip the switch and turn this thing into sub mode, the arms and legs are gonna fold back into the suit. You'll be utilizing this big thruster on the back that can bring the vehicle to a max speed of 19 knots. So the slowest vehicle yet. But then when you flip that switch again and return to crab mode, you can be in crab mode both above and below water. For those curious, the main way that crab suits are being used is to conduct underwater construction for Bridgehead City, as well as provide security for other underwater vehicles or on top of water vehicles around the area. It's got a rotary spear gun, just in case. The RDA Recom Program. Instead of blending the DNA of a Navi with the DNA of a tree hugger scientist like Grace, the RDA decided to blend together the Navi DNA with the soldiers' DNA. Back in 2154, the RDA had this brand new technology that no one talked about for the entirety of the first movie called the Soul Drive. The purpose of it was to keep the memories of essential SecOps personnel and write them into these thousands of layers of nanoscale etchings within the structures of the Soul Drive's crystal, basically duplicating the consciousness over here. Then they're gonna shove this into that blank slate of a brain that we know is to be the avatar body's brain, and then boom, it's like you didn't die in combat. Except this time, you're a 9-foot tall blue alien cat. But other than that, nothing's changed. This is why the first division of the Recom program is called Project Phoenix, as a phoenix, on occasion, is known to represent rebirth and regeneration. The emblem of Quaritch's resurrected team of generic bad guys is called Deja Blue, a clear play on the term deja vu. Stephen Lang, the actor who plays the Colonel himself, came up with the name. You know what we should do? We should analyze the emblem for a second, because we never do that. It has the phrase, "We will tread on you." So that's pretty on brand for Quaritch and his one-dimensional henchman. There's a human skull, and it has Quaritch's iconic Viper Wolf scar. The human skull is represented smaller in the frame because it's the size of a human, and the not V skull is larger because it's the size of a not V. So the proportions are pretty spot on. It also works symbolically, like how the human mind is now reborn in the alpha predator with the canine teeth, the sharp cat ears, and the snake-like neural Q. Oh yeah, this snake Q. So snakes kind of represent death and rebirth, which is fitting for the overall everything that's happening here. The snake also gives off a jungle vibe, which is also why we see a machete, Wainfleet's weapon of choice, as it's representing how the Recoms in Quaritch's team are very much experienced in jungle warfare. Quaritch and 11 other Recoms have been brought back into existence on the ISV. Let's see who we got on the team. Here's Alexander, Jong, Prager, Walker, Mansk, Fike, Zindanarsk, also known as Z-Dog, Warren, Brown, Lopez, Wainfleet, and Quaritch. Miles Quaritch is in charge, while Wainfleet is second in command of the unit. Remember when Jake was a little twig at the beginning of the first Avatar, and then he slowly gains muscle and mass throughout the movie? This was accounted for when we're going round 2. So when traveling for 6 years in the amnio tank, the Recom's avatar bodies are exposed on a daily basis to muscle stimulators that are designed to mature, condition, and strengthen the Recom body, which is why they look pretty muscular and pretty ripped right off the bat. All the Recoms are slightly older than Jake's avatar when he first got to Pandora, as each Recom is 20 years old. In order to help with the psychological transition of permanently becoming not V, the soldiers are given tattoos and hairstyles from their previous identity. Like take Lyle For example, over here, you can spot a no fear skull tattoo on his right arm and a dragon on his left forearm. I think overall, Wainfleet's new avatar has like 5 tattoos on it. Or look at Z-Dog. She's sporting a mohawk. You'll notice that later in the avatar of the Way of the Waters, that the recoms start customizing their own outfits, like cutting off the lower parts of their pants and ditching the boots entirely. They're also all given recom ID tags. Let's look at Quarch's for a second. Yeah, I don't know what to make of any of this. If you're Recom on a revenge mission to get the rogue warlord responsible for your Pandoran demise, you're going to be using equipment made specifically for you. For example, every Recom is given these analog watches to use in high magnetic fields. This one that I'm going to talk about is more essential. You're going to be given the AAS RO2 Atmos adaptation system, aka the RDA oral nasal mask for use in human atmosphere. It allows them to get a healthy dose of carbon dioxide every minute or 2. It's like the Exo-pack, but for recoms. It's going to provide supplementary carbon dioxide, which is necessary for recoms to exist within human air facilities. They also made a recom Exo-pack, but we don't really see it that much in the movies. They went to town on the details of this thing. For example, here's a moldable bridge seal, an exhalation valve, and a dial to regulate how much CO2 you're getting. And it's even marked with a warning label that says poisonous when taken by humans. There's the significantly less interesting long-range radio. It makes it so that those annoying electromagnetic flux vortices that often interfere with radio signals won't be doing that anymore. There's also going to be the Recom throat comms, Recom knife sheath, hydration pack V6 tranquilizer, Recom flamethrower, Recom RPG, Recom Hydra machine gun, and they really went all out for the ammunition. Each round has a blue tip on it. So as a Recom, all you gotta do is pack all this stuff up and take it with you, and you're gonna be fine. Well, actually, that's a lie. A lot of you are going to get eliminated like really early on. Okay, I think that was the entire video. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, but that's all I had to say. So I guess I'm going to see Vako in the next video. I swear I was done with puns, but...